Welcome to Chasing a Murderer. Today we're going to go over a story we all are familiar with. That story is Suzanne Morphew. She was reported missing on Mother's Day of 2020. Her daughters called to reach her for Mother's Day, couldn't get a hold of her, so they reached out to neighbors. They asked them to go check on her mother. Neighbors couldn't get Suzanne to answer the door. On top of that, Suzanne's husband, Barry Morphew, had a sudden job come up. And this is after she and Barry had a quite heated argument. Her Mother's Day was in Salida, Colorado. They were high school sweethearts, but their marriage was showing signs that it was strained. Like most people, Barry and Suzanne seemed to have this perfect family. They had 2 daughters. They were now raised, and they had become empty nesters. So what is the strained marriage? So there was infidelity allegations on both sides. Suzanne was a 3-time cancer survivor. She had been spending a lot of time in cancer treatment, and that seemed to become a financial issue at times for this couple. It wasn't that long ago that they had left their hometown in Indiana and bought this beautiful dream home in Colorado. The house was huge, and it was listed on Zillow as being over 3,000 square feet. That is a lot of room for just 2 people. Barry was the breadwinner, and Suzanne spent a lot of her time alone in this huge house. So they had moved away from a community that was more of a, social community into this huge open area in the middle of nowhere. She had moved away from her family, friends, and everything that she knew. I've come to the conclusion that most likely for Barry, moving his wife to this area could have been a control thing, along with being surrounded by all the things that he loved to do. So in fact, the home that they moved into here was a hunter's dream come true. Barry was a very avid hunter. He liked to keep the heads of his game hanging up inside of his home. So these were his trophies. He also had all the necessities a hunter needed, like guns, ammo, and tranquilizers. Yes, I said that, tranquilizers. Suzanne had picked up a new hobby according to her husband Barry. She had a mountain bike, and she rode that bike through the dirt paths around this open wildlife. It seemed that Barry made good money. He made that money working in construction. He also was a volunteer firefighter. We knew that Suzanne mostly stayed at home. She also had a nonprofit that she ran for collecting money for cancer. Surrounding this huge house, they had nice cars, nice equipment, and they also owned a few lots of land. But it just didn't seem like that was enough for these guys. Suzanne accused her husband Barry of cheating on her. She even purchased a spy pen to catch him in the act. But over the last few years, Suzanne had actually met up with an old classmate back in Indiana through social media. His name is Jeff. Jeff was a married man, and he had 6 children of his own. Occasionally, Suzanne and Jeff met up secretly, maintaining that flame. Both of them having to lie to their spouses, then return home. For what I can tell, it seemed that Suzanne Morphew seemed very confused of what she wanted in her life. Arguments grew more often, and a lot of it still was over finances. The sad part about this is Suzanne claimed that Barry often would include their own adult children in their arguments. But evidence says it might have been both of them that were guilty of luring them into these arguments. Suzanne had actually told one of her daughters that she might leave her father. And so the strain on this family was growing pretty strong. It seems that Suzanne Morphew thought her husband might have been cheating on her for years, and it was something that she had to worry about for a long time, though we've never seen any proof of that. According to investigators, they got a hint that Barry might have suspected that something was up between his wife and whoever she was seeing. It's May 2020, and Mother's Day is just around the corner. Suzanne's daughters had made arrangements to go on a trip. They didn't have plans to come spend Mother's Day with Mom. So again, Suzanne would be isolated in this rural town. It must have felt awful lonely for her. According to investigators, they discovered that Suzanne was actually texting Jeff, and she was texting him pretty often. Investigators didn't share everything that they uncovered in these texts, but they shared enough to give you an insight of what might have been going on. Suzanne was definitely cheating on her husband Barry, and it was behind his back. And so, this is where things begin to get dark. According to one of Suzanne's closest friends, Sheila Oliver, the Morphews had a breakdown in their marriage. There was a huge problem growing between these two. In one text message, Suzanne explained how she and Barry got into heated disputes. In one of those heated arguments, Barry had actually pushed Suzanne into a closet. Even more concerning, Sheila explained how Barry had pulled out a gun, turned it on himself, and as he held the gun to his own head, he asked his wife, "Is this what you want?" If this truly happened, then this is one sign that Barry would be having a very big mental breakdown, using violence as a way to escape pain. Suzanne texted Sheila and said, "He is not stable. It's quite desperate measures he's taking. I can't win with him. He's too good at manipulation. I feel stuck." So in these few sentences alone that we just heard, Suzanne describes a man who wants to control her. Nothing else matters to him but getting what he wants. So she's describing that she just feels so stuck that no matter which route she thinks she can take, well, it's leading to nowhere. Any path she chooses, Barry's going to work and reason her way back to him. The truth seems that Suzanne was falling out of love with her husband Barry, and that she believed that she was falling in love with her secret love affair boyfriend, Jeff. This don't happen overnight, and it had to have been something she had thought about for years. According to a few witnesses, they say that she had chosen to stay in the same house with Barry until her daughters moved out of their home. Now, according to another friend of the Morphews, they said Barry believed that his wife was having a sexual affair with another guy. And what we can tell by what we can see at this time is the way that Barry handled this situation was begging, pleading, violence, and manipulation. According to another witness, Barry had responded to his wife about this affair by writing, "If I find him, I will shoot off his balls and shove them down his throat." This is according to Holly Wilson. Also, according to a few friends, Barry used to use Suzanne's history of cancer as a way to intimidate his wife into staying in the relationship with him. Around this time, Suzanne was 49 years old. At 49 years old, she had raised two daughters, beat cancer several times, still getting cancer treatment, and supposedly having an affair for at least 2 years. But towards the end, Suzanne began to stand her ground on what she really wanted. She wrote "done" and referred to Barry as Jekyll and Hyde. Suzanne texts one of her friends and it says, "It's Jekyll and Hyde again. He and Mal were together last night, probably switching it on when he talks to her. I feel like I am crazy. I just had a conversation with him. Pretty much told him I can't be healthy and stay in this." Allegedly, in other texts, Barry brought up the fact that he was dealing with these medical bills and how much it costs to take care of a cancer survivor. How would you pay for things like your medical bills for cancer? From what we can tell, Suzanne is scared and she's trying to softly let him down until one day she tells him, "Look, we're done. I can't do this anymore." May 8th, 2020. She says, "I'm done. I could care less what you've been up to for years. We just need to figure this out civilly." She tried to be compassionate, thoughtful towards him, let him down easily, but now he leaves her no choice. He's throwing in the fact that who's going to pay for your medical bills? It's obvious Suzanne's getting fed up, and she admits for years she don't think about Barry. She really doesn't care anything about him anymore. And by May 8th, Suzanne sounds incredibly desperate to stand her ground no matter what Barry says or does, or even what the kids think at this point. We can only assume at this point, based off of the text that we're reading. I'm sure there was a lot more to their story. Barry didn't seem to want to give up, and he was fighting her tooth and nail. Barry Morphew wanted what he wanted, and he wanted it no matter what. And you can tell that the kids were being used as tools. That was kind of concerning. So they both were very worried about what their daughters thought about their separation, their arguments, etc., and so on. Suzanne seemed to be very threatened by the fact that Barry was trying to manipulate them kids in a very trying time for her. In other texts, Barry mentions that, "I promise, you're very wrong about all those crazy thoughts about me." What is he referring to here? Well, obviously, Suzanne believes or accused him of cheating and something to do with Facebook. He continued with, "Only a fool would stray from an angel like you. When I'm dead, which it won't be long, you guys will be taken care of." So, his solution to deal with this at this point is thinking that Suzanne cares if he threatens his own life, insinuating that the only thing he cares about is them being taken care of. But that isn't how this case will go. It has nothing to do with Barry disappearing. It has to do with Suzanne disappearing. If this is true, this is a very manipulative strategy, a very selfish one, and shows that Barry was in a mental crisis during the time. The perfect recipe for disaster was actually happening right in front of their eyes. Investigators discovered later that Suzanne had spent hours communicating with her secret lover by phone. Her secret lover who was married with 6 children. It makes you wonder how serious this guy was for Suzanne. I often wonder what Jeff's true intentions were, and I think he might have been one of the problems, of course he was, making her believe that maybe there was a future for them when reality there isn't. Interesting fact. Jeff actually wouldn't even care about the fact that Suzanne was missing and what he could contribute to the case because he is more interested in not being caught. What we learn is that by May 6th of 2020, Suzanne is certain that she wants to end her marriage. A lot of them texts for Barry were found in his phone, and they had been deleted. Investigators also noticed that Suzanne had entitled grievances, and that included notes like wedding ring, which police think that Barry took and melted at some point. She noted women on Facebook, which Barry told her was good for business. In another note, she mentioned how when she and Barry were in Mexico, he tried to take her phone away and look at it. But the very last text would be to her lover, Jeff. May 9th, 2020, the day before she went missing. Suzanne is sunbathing outside of her home, and she's texting her secret lover, Jeff. According to investigators, she had snapped a photo of herself smiling. Also, according to investigators, they had exchanged around 59 communications. Again, this would be the last known photo of Suzanne alive. Around 2:44 p.m. that day, Barry drives home. Just as he arrives home, his phone goes into airplane mode, and it stays in airplane mode for 7 hours. What it means is that this phone doesn't communicate with one cell tower during that time. Investigators would have to use Barry's GPS records from his Ford F-350. Why? To pinpoint his locations. They later put together a map where it shows Barry's phone pinging around their home. His locations are quite erratic and all over the place, especially on the outside of their home. This was alleged that Barry was chasing Suzanne while she was still conscious. A huge clue investigators give us of what they know happened that day. Barry would admit that he was outside and that he had a gun and was shooting chipmunks. This is the end of part 1. Be ready for part 2 to come up within the next few days. If you like the work that I do, please make sure that you subscribe, like, and share. Thank you for watching, and thank you for your support. Love you guys, and I'll see you guys soon.